Hello and welcome to the UKGN Network podcast. I'm Zoidberg. This week we've finally got the resolution to an 18-year-old cliffhanger with the release of Shenmue 3. To say this game has been long awaited would be a massive understatement. It's taken longer to arrive than Duke Nukem Forever. Developer Yu Suzuki, mastermind behind such Sega classics as Afterburner, Space Harrier and Super Hang-On, and his team took to Kickstarter to fund this third part of a planned saga, and it reached its target in record time, so there's clearly a market out there waiting for this. The first thing you'll want to do upon loading the game is switch the voice language to Japanese, as the English voices are painful to listen to. It also gives the whole game a more authentic feel, which is a bonus. The open world you'll explore is colourful and the gameplay is smooth with plenty of minigames and distractions throughout. We were pleased with the combat too, but that's not surprising considering the connections this game has to Virtua Fighter. There's less of an emphasis on combos, which makes it more enjoyable. Fans are sure to lap up every minute of it, but this is a game that makes no concessions to newcomers, and acts as if the last 18 years of gaming never happened. When we played Mass Effect 2, without having played the original, it made us want to go back and see the origins of the story and the characters, but there's nothing here that makes us want to load up Shenmue 1 and 2 and do the same. The 18 years wait for this game to arrive is proof that anything can happen in gaming if you're patient enough. Here are 5 other long dormant franchises that we think need to make a comeback. And the existence of Shenmue 3 means that we've not given up hope. Yet. Dino Crisis. In a world where Capcom seem happy to re-release, remaster and remake almost every game in the Resident Evil series, why are they not doing the same with Dino Crisis? Released when the survival horror genre was thriving, this was essentially the same game but with dinosaurs replacing zombies. It was a great game too, and featured one of the all-time great gaming jump scares. A third game, which was an Xbox exclusive and took things into space, was so terrible that it's not discussed in polite society, and it effectively killed the franchise. But can you imagine what could be produced today with the graphics engine that powered Resident Evil 7 and the recent Resident Evil 2 remake? Maybe Capcom should test the waters with a nice HD update of the first 2 games, like they did with Onimusha earlier this year. Left 4 Dead. Last week's announcement of Half-Life Alyx opened up a lot of old wounds. We'd come to terms with the fact that we'll probably never see new games in any of Valve's franchises. Then along came a trailer full of possibility, and showcasing what their Source engine is now capable of. Forget about Half-Life for a moment though, and let's talk about Left 4 Dead. This remains, even over a decade after release, the co-op shooter by which all others are measured, with fantastic environmental storytelling and more character than 1,000 Call of Duties. We still load it up and play through a campaign every couple of months. The recent World War Z game is the closest that we've come to another, and we just wish Valve would put us out of our misery and make number 3. Turtle Rock Studios are apparently working on a spiritual successor, named Back 4 Blood, so hopefully that will keep us going in the meantime. Outrun. Another game from the Yu Suzuki back catalogue, Outrun 2, is a game that we play regularly, even 15 years after release. Sumo Digital were responsible for a pixel-perfect home conversion that graced Xbox and PS2, before being released digitally on HD consoles a few years later as well. Due to the expired Ferrari license, it's no longer available sadly, but that just makes the call for a new version even stronger. We love a good arcade racer, and it's genuinely baffling that nobody seems to make them anymore. Forza Horizon and Grid are not arcade games, despite what their marketing would suggest. We want the high-speed thrills of a new Outrun, or a Ridge Racer, or even a Burnout. None seem likely, unfortunately, but at least indie devs are keeping the spirit alive by the likes of Xenon Racer and Dangerous Driving. Timesplitters. Timesplitters was the first game we ever played for the PS2, and easily the best launch title for Sony's new console. It provided hours of fun and brought back memories of the GoldenEye split-screen deathmatch mode. The excellent cartoon visuals made it instantly stand out, and it remains a great-looking game to this day. This came from an era long before online gaming on consoles was commonplace, and we can only imagine how good a brand new game in this series would be, although we must admit the competition is a lot stronger now than it was. There have continued to be rumours of a revival, but nothing concrete has ever been announced. In this post-Overwatch world, there's a chance that a new game might get lost, which could explain the wait. But surely there's enough love for this IP to at least give it a try. Vagrant Story. Square Enix are another company who like to revisit their back catalogue on a regular basis. Look no further than the upcoming remake of Final Fantasy VII, for example. But Vagrant Story is one game that's remained untouched. released on the PlayStation 1 way back in 2000, this action RPG received near universal acclaim. The fact that it's never received a sequel or even an HD makeover is nothing short of scandalous. The gameplay puts more emphasis on combat than you'd expect, with some massive combos possible if you get the timing right, and it features a fantastically in-depth weapon crafting system. There's almost no limit to the combinations you can try, and finding the right one for each enemy type is hugely satisfying. Maybe with the game's 20th anniversary coming next year, Square Enix have something planned. We can only hope. Now it's time to take a look at this week's new games with our reviews. The Touryst is a thoroughly charming adventure puzzle game for the Switch that seems to have come out of nowhere. Developer Shinen Multimedia have a long history of surprising us with their output, and this is no exception. You're tasked with visiting a selection of holiday islands and uncovering the mysteries surrounding the monuments on each one. It's simply a joy to wander around and explore, talking to all the island inhabitants and going on quests. These range from flying a drone over targets within a time limit to throwing a beach party. The solutions to the puzzles are never too taxing either, even if actually doing them can sometimes be frustrating. There are so many secrets to discover and unlock that when one character tells you not to swim too far out into the ocean, you'll want to do it just to see what happens. This is easily one of the most enjoyable indie games we've played all year, although any game where you can visit a mini arcade and play a variation on Bomb Jack is always going to be recommended by us. Sniper Ghost Warrior Contracts is the fourth game in Polish developer City Interactive's series that began way back in 2010. While each game in the series has been an improvement on the last, they've always been solid but not especially memorable. Contracts is easily the best yet, with large open levels and plenty of opportunities to observe and take out enemies from distance. It's very satisfying to sneak through a level, take out your target and escape, all while remaining undetected. What's not that great is the repetition. Having to make your way through the same section past the same enemies makes tedium set in far too quickly. It's a shame because it looks great and lining up each shot requires genuine thought and skill. Unfortunately, the Sniper Elite series exists and is a much more fun option. Golazo is a cel-shaded arcade football game that keeps things simple in its attempt to bring the arcade spirit back to sports games. With only 6 outfield players on each team, the action is certainly fast and easy to grasp, although there are definite problems with player selection when trying to win back the ball. It's also a shame that the game doesn't recognise when two teams are wearing the same colours, and there's no way to change the shirts manually. We liked how there's a button to hurdle any incoming tackles, which switches into a spin if you're sprinting, but there's very little depth to the control of your team. Shooting in particular seems to require no skill. You hold the shoot button and a direction and that's it. Sometimes the keeper will save it, others he won't. Power-ups are a nice addition though, adding a little variety by giving you additional speed, tackling ability or shot power for a limited time. The gameplay has a lot in common with the likes of Taito's Football Champ, and like that game it can be enjoyable for a couple of games, but you'll soon move on to play something else instead. We finished the show as usual with our Retro Game of the Week. The latest release in Hamster's excellent Arcade Archives series is In the Hunt, a supremely challenging scrolling shoot-'em-up from IREM. Putting you and a friend in control of a high-powered submarine, you must fight your way through level after level of underwater mayhem. Although released in the arcades in 1993, our first experience of this game was the PlayStation version released 3 years later. The levels are long and varied, but because the screen only moves forward when you do, they can be tackled at a pace that's comfortable to you. This allows you to get used to the power-up system and attack patterns, where you have to keep a constant eye on what's happening above and below the ocean surface. This is not a game you'll finish in a day. A lot of the same team behind this game would go on to create the Metal Slug series a few years later, and you can definitely see a lot of the same style in the excellent visuals, particularly the end-of-level bosses. Like all games in the Arcade Archive series, it features multiple screen filter and difficulty options, and it gives you a choice of playing the Japanese or English versions of the game. You can buy it now on PlayStation 4 and Switch for just over £5, and we definitely recommend it. That brings us to the end of another show. Give us a like and subscribe if you enjoyed it. Before we go, we'd like to thank everyone who entered our Star Wars giveaway last week and congratulate our winner, Cub Warrior 06. We hope you're enjoying your game. We'll have another giveaway at Christmas, so stay tuned. If you have anything to say about this week's show, then do so in the comments. We always welcome your feedback. Or alternatively, follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram at UKGN Network. We'll be back at 7 PM next Friday. Until then, thanks for listening. See you soon.